I, 16, female, have been living with my mom, 38, female, since I was 13 and my dad passed away. My parents had never been married, but they'd worked out a living arrangement for me where I'd spend half of the month with my dad and the other with my mom. My dad had never been in any other serious relationship after my mom, and even if he had been, I didn't know about it. But my mother had a new boyfriend every 3 months, and it was pretty tiring for me as a kid to get used to it. I'm not shaming her, but I just didn't like it as a child. My dad passed away in an accident 3 years back, and since then I've been living with my mother permanently. Now that she had no child support and has to pay all of the expenses, I finally realize what an unpleasant and horrid woman she really is. She's constantly belittling me and reminding me how much it's costing her to raise me as if it's my fault. She hates me, and I know it, so I try to make myself scarce as much as possible, but it's not like I can stop existing just to please her. I've also realized a couple of things about my mom while living with her these past few years. She changes boyfriends frequently and keeps herself looking as young as possible to catfish them into being with her. She pretends she's in her late 20s or early 30s, even though she's pushing 40 now. And all of her boyfriends are uber rich young men who are with her just for her looks. It's fair because she's also with them just for their money. Personally, I don't approve of this lifestyle at all, but I can't complain because this is what is easy for her. And realistically, a waitress can't afford the lifestyle that she wishes to lead. All I'm concerned about is that there's food on the table and that my tuition is paid consistently. That's all. So I keep to myself for the most part and have even taken up part-time jobs recently to make sure I don't have to rely on my mother all the time. A few days ago, I made a mistake and my mother kicked me out of her house. The mistake I'd made was also not even a big deal. I accidentally slipped up while her new boyfriend was visiting and told him that I was in my junior year when he asked me which year I was in. Yeah, I'm supposed to tell her boyfriends that I'm still in freshman year so that they don't think of her as old or whatever. That's the level of shallow my mom is. Her boyfriend didn't make a big deal out of it and didn't even seem to care, but after he left, my mom and I got into a huge fight, which ended with her kicking me out. Not just kicking me out, but she actually told me that I was never allowed to come back and that I was on my own now. I couldn't even believe that she could be capable of such cruelty, but there it was. Luckily, I did have some friends, and I decided to go over to my best friend's place for that one night, but ended up staying at their place. My best friend is my age, and she's been my friend since kindergarten. So I knew that I could help her and her family to help me out. I also got all the emotional support I needed from them and was able to continue going to school because of them. I'm always going to be grateful for that. I was sad, but I was also seething about what my mother had done. I'd resented her for years after my dad died, and nothing I ever did was good enough for her. I guess she just wanted to get rid of me somehow, which is why she picked a stupid little fight with me, so she'd have an excuse to kick me out. A teen daughter probably ruined her whole young and hot persona, and she was afraid she wouldn't be able to find new boyfriends to live off of once I started looking older. I still have a chubby face, which makes it hard to guess my age, but that's not going to last forever, and I'm pretty tall as well, thanks to my dad's genes. She didn't want me around anyway, so my slip-up was just the excuse that she needed to throw me out. Unfortunately for her, I knew something about her that she'd kept trying her very best to hide. Her last boyfriend was the only one who'd lasted more than 5 months, and they seemed to be getting pretty serious. She'd been lying to him about her age as well, but he either didn't realize it or he didn't care, and the guy was head over heels in love with her, even though I could see it. He was pretty nice to me as well, and I so wished I could tell him to make a run for it so he could escape my mother, but he seemed like a genuinely good guy. He must have been around 25 or 27, not older than that, and he was seriously loaded, which wasn't a surprise, since my mom only went after rich guys. He was the heir to some company, I think. I thought my mom even planned on marrying him, but they broke up very abruptly, and I didn't find out the reason until recently when I was going through my mother's messages. We share a laptop, so I often do check out what my mom's been up to. Yes, I'm well aware that that's an invasion of her privacy, but I really don't care. I get bored sometimes and like to remind myself from time to time what a horrible person my mother really is. Luckily, she treats her younger sister like her personal diary and tells her every little detail. They're both the same, vapid gold diggers, so she enjoys it too. So a few weeks ago, I was going through her texts and started reading about why exactly she and her ex had broken up. She mentioned that she'd taken 10 grand from her boyfriend to buy herself a new wardrobe and makeup, but she told him the reason she needed 10 grand was because apparently I'd been in an accident and had to be operated on. She then refused to meet him for several weeks and started avoiding him, saying that she wanted to spend time with me and help me heal. Then she broke up with him when he started saying that he wanted to see me. She claimed that he was overwhelming her and she needed her space, which is how she got rid of him. These are her words, not mine. I felt furious when I read all of that because her ex was such a good guy. And this is how she treated him? Not only had she taken a crap load of money from him just to buy herself expensive new clothes and makeup, but she'd also lied to him and hadn't even bothered to give him a proper explanation for the breakup. I felt horrible and had half a mind to go and tell him about it, but I was afraid that my mother would find out somehow and would kick me out, since she always is looking for an excuse to get rid of me. But now that I was out anyway, I didn't have anything to lose. So 2 days ago, I decided to head over to her ex-boyfriend's house after school and spill the beans on what my mother had done. I even had proof, since I'd taken several pictures of her chats back when I'd found out, not knowing that I'd need to use it someday. I knew his address because I'd been to his place twice with my mother, so it wasn't difficult to find him. When he saw me at his door, he looked really confused, but let me in nonetheless. I guess he was curious, even though it seemed like he was doing well and had probably moved on. After a bit of small talk, I told him all about what I knew and even showed him the chats. I didn't know what he was going to do about this, but I'd hoped that he'd at least confront my mother. But at the time, he only thanked me for everything in a really quiet voice and said that he'd think about what to do. I was a little disheartened because I thought my mom would get off scot-free once more, and went back home feeling like this was a huge waste of my time and energy. But today I received several frantic calls from my neighbors saying that her ex-boyfriend had shown up at her house with the police and she'd just been placed under arrest. I was really shocked because I didn't think that he'd actually do anything, since he seemed like he'd given up. I guess I was wrong. My neighbors told me that my mom had told them to inform me and expected me to come down to the police station and help sort things out, but I'm not really interested in doing that, so I hung up. This is exactly what I wanted, and I don't feel sorry for her in the slightest. AITA for helping my mother's ex-boyfriend get her arrested after she banned him from the house for one mistake. Update 1. My mom had been arrested a few days back, and I'm guessing she's out on bail or something. I haven't really checked up on her because, like I said, I really don't care. My aunt, my mom's sister, did make it a point to try and make me feel guilty for the way I'm acting right now, but if anything, it just makes me feel like I'm doing the right thing. She sent me several long texts talking about how I'm an ungrateful brat and that my dad would be ashamed of me if he had been alive. That woman didn't even know my dad well. She'd probably met him once or twice in her lifetime. So she was just trying to get me all emotional. I think she's also figured out that I must have been the one who sent those screenshots to my mom's ex, because she said that I'd sold out my own mother over something so petty. I don't think literally kicking me to the curb just because I told her new boyfriend my real age is not something petty. I don't know what she's going to get out of this anyway. I think they should focus on fighting my mom's case, because I'm pretty sure that her ex is going to take her to court, or else he wouldn't have gotten the police involved at all. That's just my guess, but I really do hope that he does, and his mom's life is ruined. Yeah, I'm a horrible person for wishing that on my own mother. But I don't think that what she's done to me and the way she's treated me is fair either, so she deserves this. She deserves nothing but hatred. I'm just glad that all her sins are catching up to her, and now she'll have to pay for it all. In the literal sense, too. I can't believe that I even let so many things slide just because I needed to live with her. In a way, I'm glad that she decided to kick me out, because my best friend's parents are actually thinking about adopting me. I'm over the moon about this, and so is my best friend. I already pretty much consider her a sister, so this is perfect. I'm just hoping my mother doesn't put up a fight when I have to ask her to sign her parental rights away. Update 2. My mom's out on bail, and I guess her ex is indeed suing her. She was waiting for me right outside school today and demanded to speak to me in person. I didn't want her to embarrass me in front of my friends, so I agreed to speak to her. She immediately started saying all the crap that her sister had been saying to me, accusing me of being ungrateful and selfish. And then she said that she wanted me to tell her ex that I'd made up that whole story and that those screenshots had been photoshopped by me to get her in trouble. She even suggested that I take some pictures of myself with my arm in a sling so she could convince him that the accident had really happened. I was speechless that she still had the audacity to demand that I lie and cover up for her after she'd ruthlessly kicked me out of her house. She didn't deserve my sympathy in the slightest, and I honestly thought that getting embarrassed at school would have been better than speaking to her. I shouldn't have talked to her at all, but what's done is done, so I decided to be a little sneaky and said that I'd only do as she said if she agreed to let my best friend's parents adopt me and gave up her rights as a parent. Just as I'd thought, she agreed to it without missing a beat, and even seemed happy about it. I felt a little upset that she was so thrilled to finally get rid of me, but honestly, I'd seen this coming. I knew this was going to happen someday or the other. I'd always known that my mother hated me, and even before my dad passed away, she'd only wanted me to stay with her so that she could continue taking child support from my dad. I'd always tried to win her approval so that she'd love me, but all she cared about was her boyfriends and her looks. It frustrated me to no end as a kid, and still does. She shouldn't have chosen to have me at all if she didn't feel ready to become a mother, which she clearly isn't. She didn't want to be a mom back then, and she still doesn't, which is pretty obvious, as you guys can all conclude from whatever I've shared here. I'm just happy that now at least I'll have a family who's genuinely happy to have me. They've always treated me like one of their own, and I know they'll be thrilled to adopt me. My best friend's dad is one of the best family lawyers I'm aware of as well, so I know the process will be easy and quick too. Update 3. Hey there, I've been living with my best friend and her family for a while now, and honestly, it feels as if I'm in a movie. I had no idea this was what family was supposed to feel like. The comfort and love they've showered me with is beyond compare. My dad, while he was alive, would always go out of his way to remind me that I was loved every time I came back from my mother's place, because I think he could sense that something was off, even though I always made sure that I didn't let it show. Back then, I used to think that my mother would love me someday in spite of all the signs that said otherwise. So I wanted to continue visiting her, but would be disappointed every single time. And every single time, my dad would try his best to put those broken pieces of me back together and make me feel like myself again. After his death, there was no one who'd do that for me except for my best friend. But we'd only meet at school and sometimes on the weekends. But now I feel like I found a new family. One that my father would love for me to be a part of, and I'm going to make sure that it happens. My best friend's dad has already prepared the legal documents, and if all goes well, they'll be able to adopt me soon. I've also been in touch with my mother and have been convincing her that I'll definitely convince her ex to leave her alone, but like I said, I'm not doing any of that. I'm just making sure she signs off on the termination of her parental rights first, and then I'll cut her out of my life forever. My best friend thinks it's a really clever plan and has been reassuring me that it's certainly going to work because I've been worried sick about all of this lately. Like I don't let it show at school, but my anxiety has been off the charts. My best friend wants me to tell her parents so that they can look into therapists and make sure I get the help I need. But I've made her promise that she's not going to breathe a word of this until I'm ready. The reason for that is that I don't want to overburden them. I know I just talked a lot about how they treat me like family, and they do, really. I also know that they won't mind taking me to therapists to get help, but I just don't want to feel guilty about making them run around so much. I know they're all working really hard for me, and I'm feeling both grateful and guilty. I don't know how to deal with this, so many emotions all at once, and that's why my anxiety has been really bad lately. I'm just praying that this all comes to an end soon. Update 4. So my mother signed the papers and she's no longer legally my parent now. I couldn't be happier about it. She was very pleased to sign it as well and even tried to act all friendly to my new adoptive parents as well. But they didn't reciprocate and were very curt, so she eventually took the hint. After that was done, she pulled me aside once again and asked me about when I was going to speak to her ex and take it all back. I didn't want to ruin the day, so I told her very soon, and then she left. I'm still sticking to my earlier decision of not telling her ex a thing, and I'm low-key proud of how I dealt with this entire situation. I know it was very sneaky and mean, but I did whatever I had to get away from my mother once and for all. I don't think she even regrets whatever she did. She seemed perfectly at ease today because she knew that she was getting rid of me permanently, and now she was free to live her life the way she wanted to without worrying about me. It still stung, but I knew now that this wasn't my fault. I could have been the best goddamn daughter on this planet, and she still wouldn't have wanted me, so I was okay. At least I have people who truly want me by my side now, so I'm not losing out on anything. And I get to live with my best friend permanently. I guess she's my sister now for real, and it still feels so weird. I can't believe I have a whole new family, and even though it's just 2 years until I turn 18, I still want to make the most of it. After we came back home that day, we decided to celebrate with a cake and takeout from my favorite restaurant, which was the perfect end to a perfect day. I can't wait to spend the rest of my days with the family that chose me. Update 5. Hey guys, I thought that the last update would be the last update, but I'm back again because something pretty messed up happened recently. So after my mother had signed the papers, I blocked her everywhere because I didn't want to keep in touch, and I definitely didn't want her to be able to have any access to me. For a couple of days, things were pretty normal and I didn't hear from her. Then out of the blue, I received an email from an email address I didn't recognize that reminded me to stick to my words and stay true to my promises. I knew instantly that it had to be my mother because who else would do something like this? I ignored it, but then she started texting me and calling me from other numbers as well to convince me. I wanted to tell my parents, Still feels weird to say that, but I'm trying to get used to it. But I was scared because this would also mean that I'd have to explain what I'd promised my mother in exchange for her to sign the papers without much of a fuss. I didn't know how they'd take that, so I decided to keep it to myself. But then, just a few days back, my mother paid me a visit at school. After school, my best friend and I were supposed to walk home, but I saw her waiting right outside and she looked pissed. I didn't know what to do then and ended up having an anxiety attack right there. My mother's reappearance meant bad news, and I didn't want to deal with that just now. I couldn't think of what to do, and I was especially scared of disappointing my new family with my sly little stunt. So I ran back inside the school building while my best friend chased after me. I locked myself in the janitor's closet and refused to come out, and I think I must have accidentally passed out because of sheer panic. Because the next thing I remember is being carried out of the closet by my best friend's dad, while she, her mom, and the principal looked on. By the time I got home, it was dark and I was told to go to sleep. They didn't sound mad, but they didn't sound happy either, so I was really nervous. But I did manage to fall asleep after a while because I was mentally exhausted. The next day after I woke up and had breakfast, my family sat me down and told me that my best friend had told them everything, and they reassured me that they weren't mad at me but were concerned. I was actually kind of relieved that it was all out in the open now because I was tired of keeping secrets. Thank goodness my best friend decided that my well-being was more important than keeping our secrets and decided to spill, because after that, we decided to file for a restraining order against my mother. They told me that they didn't think it was wrong of me at all to try and manipulate my mother into getting my way. In fact, they even thought that it was kind of clever since I just beat her at her own game and she couldn't do anything about it now. So I was happy that they weren't disappointed by what I'd done. Anyway, we filed for a restraining order against my mother, and hopefully I'll be able to get the longer one because I don't want her around me ever again. She's always had bad vibes and will continue to be that way. I've had enough of her. We're also looking into therapists around us because I have a lot of emotions to deal with given my past, and I'm happy that I'm finally getting the help that I need. I'll always be grateful to my best friend and my new family for reminding me what love and family mean once more, and I bet my dad would love this for me too. Stay tuned for more stories from our girl relationships.